Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Tyler McInnes, tōku ingoa, and I am the Kairuruku Whakangungu, the Bioinformatics Training Coordinator for Genomics Aotearoa. And I'm here to reflect on our nationwide bioinformatics training program. So this program, it started back in sort of mid-2019 when Genomics Aotearoa and our partners NeSI ran our first joint training workshop. Fast forward to September of 2024 and we celebrated running our 100th workshop together, which was a massive milestone for us. And in those sort of 100 workshops, we filled like more than 2,000 seats in workshops that have taken place online and in person. And we've covered everything from sort of the fundamentals of command line through to very specific, very specialized workflows in genomics. And with all of these workshops, you know, we've gone through quite a big experience. And so the idea here is that I'll be reflecting on this nationwide training program. And I'll do that by sort of splitting my talk into three parts. We'll take a look at an overview of the training program. We'll look at some of our outcomes, and to look at our outcomes, we'll do that by examining some feedback that we've collected in from the community. And then third, reflecting on these outcomes, I'll share some of my opinions on what we're doing with our training and where our training might go in the future. So the aim of the training program, just sort of broadly stated, is to make sure that researchers in Aotearoa are well trained and they're well informed on the most up-to-date bioinformatics methods and tools that they need so that our research can keep pace with the rest of the world. And to meet those aims, we've sort of got to address two key needs. And those needs are that, one, every year we get PhD students who are embarking on their PhDs. We get people who are wet lab scientists who want to analyze their own data. There's this constant influx and turnover of researchers who are starting their bioinformatics journey. And they all start from like very different places and they all get very different levels of support. So there, we need to make sure that we kind of smooth that process and make sure that training is equitable across the country. So that's sort of the first aspect. And the second aspect is that methods are advancing, and they're advancing so quickly now that it's not very efficient for experienced researchers to learn a new tool from first principles. So here we need to try and aim for this efficient dissemination of knowledge into an experienced workforce. So the challenge really is that we've got a very diverse set of training kind of needs, and we're working with a very distributed community here in Aotearoa. Now, the method that we use for this training is based on the Carpentries training methodology. So this means that when we run a workshop, our workshops are run or supported by one or more people who have gone through the formal Carpentries instructor training, and they're supported on the day by one or more helpers just to make sure that everything kind of works on the day and that it goes smoothly. And we use the live coding approach. So live coding is where your instructor is going to be running through material in real time, and the expectation is that the audience is going to be working along with them. Now, as a method, this is it was really interesting to learn about and to start to work in. I would say that it's highly engaging as a method. It's like the opposite of your sort of wall of text. It's there's always stuff kind of happening on screen, and you need to stay engaged and stay focused. And as a method, it is very explanatory. So we would never ask you to draw the rest of the owl. We work through every single step with you one at a time. And this means that everybody is sort of kept along, everybody keeps up. But as a method, when drawing an owl in real time with an audience, you tend to make mistakes. But that is a very important part of the way that we work, because people can see in real time mistakes occurring, and they can learn that process of debugging their code, which is critical for learners. It's not just about learning to debug your mistakes, though. A lot of our workshops are run online, and online has a massive barrier for learning. There's also going to be always a barrier between an instructor and a learner. And seeing someone make mistakes and puzzle their way through them in real time is a great way to break down that barrier and build rapport with your audience. So in terms of our workshops, we run a sort of regular rotation of workshops that are at the introductory to intermediate level. These are running on a cycle roughly every sort of 2 to 3 months, so people can kind of jump in whenever they like. And then we've got sort of very specialized workshops, and these might be run once a year or once every 2 years based on that level of demand. And thinking about our audience, I think we can split them into 3 categories. We could say people are foundational, so these are like PhD students or early career researchers who want bioinformatics to be a core part of their skill set. So they're using bioinformatics, very regularly. We also have what I'd call supplemental learners. So these might be people who are wet lab scientists and they want to learn a particular workflow, and RNA-seq is the key example here. And we also have people who are maybe they might be sort of a lot more like middle of their career. They might be assistant research fellows who want to add a skill set. And a comment we hear regularly is that people want to be more employable, and we'll look at that in a second. And then our third group are quite different. These are more experienced bioinformaticians who maybe want to jump into learning a particular tool. They want to sort of join more of a discussion. Right, so that's an overview of the workshop. So we'll take a look at some of our outcomes for the last little while. And to do that, at the end of last year, I sent out a survey. I contacted everybody who had attended a workshop from the start of 2023 through to the end of 2024. So of the hundreds of people that I contacted who'd attended our free workshops, of the hundreds of people who received the follow-up feedback email, we had a total of 70 responses. And I know that survey uptake is sort of a constant and consistent challenge for everybody. Given these numbers, I don't want to focus too much on the statistics, and I want to look more at the key themes that have come out of our survey, but we will start with some of our statistics. So first of all, 84% of responders said that they'd already used workshop skills in their own data analysis, and then 24% of people said that they'd used those skills to publish data. And in addition to these sort of like specific questions I had, there was sort of open, free format areas. And in that, we had a number of people saying things like they had manuscripts away for review, which didn't count towards this, or they had attended a workshop specifically because they'd hit a roadblock and the workshop was enabling them to move through the roadblock, but they weren't at publishing just yet. Now, I said that some people had mentioned specifically they're joining a workshop because they wanted to be more employable. So I asked people, has attending a workshop improved your ability to change roles? And had like a little clarification in there saying, have you actually changed roles, or have you been able to apply for a role that you wouldn't previously have even been able to apply for? And we got 20 people saying that workshops had improved or drastically improved their ability to change roles. So taking this data together, in light of that small sample size, but looking at this together, I'm confident here that we are providing the right skills and we are getting these skills into the community. More than just skills, I see that we are providing a form of connection for the community. So 20% of people said that they had formed collaborations as a result of a workshop. And again, a quick clarification here, a collaboration was listed as anything like publishing together, or you're working on data analysis together, maybe you're just emailing regularly, or you're meeting up with people in your location. Anything that might have come about as attending a workshop. So remember that the majority of our workshops are happening online, so 20% of people forming a collaboration, I think that's a very significant win. And then maybe even more importantly, 39% of people had said that they are taking those skills that they've learned and they are then going on to teach them to other people. And from an education standpoint, this is really exciting because this means that we're getting an excellent return on our time invested into people to have them go and pass those skills on to others. And this idea of community is something that I was interested in based on these survey results, and we've also heard that over the last few days in the BOFs and some of our talks, the importance of community. And this is something that showed up a lot in what I call testimonials. So I just said to people, just tell us your feedback. What are your experiences in an open format way? And if we group these by certain themes, first person said, I work in a small team with no other researchers who specialize in genomics. I do not have colleagues to draw experience from or collaborate with. Another person said, I'm halfway through my PhD. I had no experience in bioinformatics and my whole PhD project involved genomics. And this particular experience is very common. We hear people say either they joined a lab and they inherited a whole lot of data, or they jumped into a project, they've generated data, but they don't yet know how to analyze it. And sometimes this person is in the same situation as the previous one, where they don't have any colleagues to work with on that topic. Okay, the third one here, a little bit different. I'm self-taught in bioinformatics. It was reaffirming to see similar approaches being used. We've just heard Paul talk about how hard it is to know whether the methods you're using are the correct ones. So if you're self-taught in bioinformatics, seeing other people demonstrate similar skills or having someone to talk to about those skills is very, very important. So I think looking at these words, we can probably feel the level of isolation that some people are experiencing. And I think it's very important to remember that some of these people are, they might have traveled a long way, they might be well outside of their comfort zone or their sort of support networks. So for us to be able to address this experience that people are having is very important. I didn't just ask for positive feedback though, I also asked for your criticisms or any negative experiences that people had had. And of course, there was a whole lot of you guys were talking too fast, or you were talking too slow, or you had too much information, not enough information. But if we put that aside, we'll just focus on a couple of actionable pieces of feedback that came in. So the first one was online workshops, they really boost accessibility, but I miss that in-person connection. Can we try a hybrid hub model? Now, most of the community don't know this, but we have run the occasional hub model workshop. We usually do that more as like a pilot with some of our internal ECRs, or when we're developing a workshop, we've sort of had hubs where people get together and they might share a Zoom screen and work through a workshop together. And I think in terms of people forming connections, this style has got some serious legs, but it also has some logistical challenges. We tend to really need some kind of boots on the ground to make this work. We noticed that different institutions have got certain requirements for making room bookings or internet access. And I personally feel that if we're going to provide a hub where we get strangers to all come into a room together, we need to provide some kind of like a hub leader, like an instructor or a helper, so that people are feeling safe and to make sure things work on the day. Kind of a different piece of feedback that came in was that it can be difficult to fit in full-day workshops around my commitments. Half-day workshops tend to be better. So we'd actually trialed some half-day workshops for an entirely different reason, which is that some of our workshops require very sort of specific domain knowledge instructors, and if that instructor can't block out a whole day, that becomes really challenging for us to organize. So we trialed a workshop, we took a 2-day workshop and we split it into 4 half-days. And we found this not only was a bit easier to organize, but then when people were coming into these workshops, they came in with a whole lot of optimism. They came in with sort of more questions, and I think this indicates that people had been able to go away, consolidate their knowledge, maybe find their knowledge gaps, test things out, and they came in with questions. They also arrived with a lot more energy and enthusiasm, because like a full day of Zoom meetings is hard, but a full day Zoom workshop where you're paying 100% attention is extremely draining, both for the instructors and for the learners. Also, we see a fair number of people who tell us they have to leave a workshop early because they've got to go and pick up kids from school or anything like that. And so if we can provide half-day workshops just to get around that particular issue, that'd be, a really nice thing for us to be able to do. Okay, last criticism, slightly different. A message regarding what needs to be prepared, such as having 2 screens would be helpful. When we're doing our live coding, we just kind of assume that people can see the material that we're working from, that they can have space to do their own writing, maybe space to take their own notes. I include this one mainly as a plug for the idea of collecting an unstructured feedback, because I'd never thought to ask a question that would lead to this, but when people tell us what their experiences are, this was just a very surprising thing to me, but obviously not everybody has 2 screens at home. And this is a very actionable piece of feedback that we can sort of respond to. This last one was like an entirely unexpected finding, but a very positive one. People said, workshop notes have got these awesome details. I often refer back to these notes when I'm doing my analysis. I use the material in the workshops as a way to refresh my memory. They help me to prepare beforehand, but then also afterwards when I needed to review and study. And it might sound silly, but this was kind of a blindsided me that people were using our material afterwards. I was thinking of workshop material as a way that you get through the day, and this idea that people are using our material afterwards is really positive, and it shows there's this whole space that we can start to explore as a way to make our workshops go further. Okay, so those are sort of 3 kind of themes that came in from our survey feedback. So just taking a couple of minutes to look at that feedback and where we might go from here. So the first reflection is that community is obviously very important for people. And I want to sort of preface this slide by saying that our primary aim is to provide training. And so I'm very aware of the idea that we don't want to get sidetracked away from that. We don't want to get dragged away from our aim of training. But if we can provide more support for communities, then this would be an excellent outcome. We just need to find a way to do so that doesn't come at the cost of training. And maybe one of the ways that we can do this is we can start to reach out to people who have an interest in training. You know, when 39% of people say that they are training others, then they might at least have a passing interest in training, and maybe we can work with them to allow them to work more easily. I talked a little bit about this idea of live coding, and I think it's a really excellent style. I was just totally enamored with it when I first encountered it. And now that I've had a bit more time to work in it, I sort of think we can explore this in a few ways. So it has a couple of limitations. I noticed that it really splits your focus. Like if you're trying to listen to someone, you're trying to take notes, and then at the same time you're trying to like keep up with them in live coding, it can be very challenging. And I feel like it provides a sense of pressure. When you're keeping up with someone who's live coding, it's like having an egg timer at your desk, and that's like not how we want to work. I think it's sort of a Carpentries thing is to have this idea of I go, we go, you go. So that might be where, say, the instructor demonstrates something, we'll work through an example together, and then you'll have unstructured time to work on a separate exercise in your own time as a way to learn. Up third, this idea of material being so important to how people are learning and the ways that people are using it. So something that we've tried is to have pre-filled code blocks that people can sort of take away. We originally tried this because it meant that people made fewer mistakes and we could get through more material on a day. But I think this also means that people can then take this stuff away and they can work with it more comfortably in their own time without feeling like they'll miss something. Having extra annotation on there makes a lot of sense. You know, I think there's no reason to have any sense of like secret material that you only get if you attend in person. We might as well just have everything written down for everybody. And then I know personally for myself that I need more encouragement to do exercises. If ever I look to my copy of R for Data Science, I'm very happy to read through it, but whenever I look at an exercise, I just eyeball it and say, I could probably do that. And so we need to find some way to get people to actually engage with those exercises. And there's a really a nice new tool that's come out recently from Posit, the people behind RStudio, WebR. It's a web-based interface where you can have exercises built in. They come in with like plenty of space to be able to provide hints and tips. You can provide very specific feedback and responses to people. Just one way that we can start to really explore how material can be used more efficiently. All right, so to conclude with our reflecting on training, we are very effective in training based on the responses that we're getting from the feedback, not just the survey data, but we see the way that we interact with people. People are very positive about the workshops, and you can see their enjoyment as they're attending. Isolation is a very strong sensation for learners, and anything that we can do to provide them with a sense of community is going to be very valuable for them and their development. And then finally, just stressing the importance of feedback and how we go about making our changes and constantly updating our material and our workshops, because it's other people's experiences that really matter and should drive how we work. Just a quick acknowledgement to NeSI and to Genomics Aotearoa, who are involved in training. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. Any questions for Taylor? One question. We have time for one question.
Cool. Thank you. That was really good. Just interested in the live coding that you were talking about at the end there. So from the workshops that we run, I feel like either whether it's in person or online, like in person, from experience, like the live coding, you can kind of get into situations where, there might be someone who's kind of struggling to keep up, and then they'll sort of close in on themselves and just sort of, yep, I'm fine, don't worry about it, when they're actually just sort of falling behind the pack. And then similarly with the online format, there's already that disconnect of they're on another side of a screen and you've got a much stricter time to keep to. Because I feel like it's a lot easier for people to kind of fall behind and maybe become dissatisfied. Do you have any comments on that? Yep, that sensation of people kind of dropping out, I think is very real, and I know how hard it can be to catch up if you do fall behind. Strangely enough, I think that online provides a lot of opportunities for working with those people, because we have, say, breakout rooms where you can pull someone aside and have a full conversation with them to get them caught up. And on
on Zoom, the chat is often very active. If anybody has a small mistake, they can correct that really quickly, and we've got a good team of helpers who are on top of that. So you get this sort of like it's like a non-disruptive conversation going on the side to make sure that everybody is keeping up. We also do see, with working in the online training environment that we work in, we can see that people are generating all of the files in real time. So we have a good idea that most people are keeping up to date with things as they go along.
Hi, it's Carrie from the Carpentries. To the point about the workshops being more accessible if they're half day versus full days. One thing that we noticed as an organization is that pre-COVID, so before COVID, we actually didn't run any online workshops. And then when COVID happened, we learned how to move our workshops online. But once we did that, it seems like everyone, and I want to know if it's true in the room too, we're expected to be in person and also online at the same time. So whereas before COVID, if I was going to this meeting, for example, I wasn't also expected to join the staff meeting online, leave a session to go do a 30-minute meeting. But now it's like you can teach the workshop, but you can attend an in-person workshop and also be online to do your job, And I was wondering, is it true for the workshops that you mentioned a couple of things like, individuals needing to, of course, get home and care for children and things like that. But from what we've seen in our surveys at the Carpentries, it's also that now we're expected to be in person and we're expected to be online at the same time. And I don't know how to fix that problem.
Yeah. I know what you mean there, and I was talking to I think it was to Nick there just earlier about being at a workshop or being here at a conference, but still having to deal with issues on Slack. And you're right, that is something that I feel like changed a lot with COVID. So my previous role, I was a teaching fellow. So prior to COVID, if someone couldn't attend a lab, there was a strong expectation that you had to attend the lab. And similarly, I think prior to COVID, if someone had said, I want to attend your workshop, but I'm going to duck out for an hour, I would have said, well, there's actually a really long wait list, so maybe we should prioritize them. And there's sort of been a big shift towards just being a lot more accommodating. So I think that's really important, but then at the same time, it does mean that, sometimes people leave for an hour or 2 hours out of a workshop and come back, and it is challenging, and I'm not really sure what the right balance there is.
Thanks, Taylor, again.